Welcome to the MEMONEET students. Myself, Ritik, your biology SME. Mm. I hope you are very well aware that this Sunday you will be having the Brahmastra test series test, and the syllabus to that is the human reproduction. So already two videos have been uploaded in the YouTube channel. So if you have missed any of those, make sure that you watch those lecture and then come to this part. Okay. So today I'll be discussing on the fertilization and implantation. After that, I'll be discussing about the pregnancy and embryonic development. And the last, I'll be discussing about the parturition as well as the lactation. I need to be very honest, students. Like I have been seeing that most of you have started replying to the previous videos which have uploaded in the YouTube channel. I got more number of views and more number of likes. So this has literally motivated me to come up even the best way, to make you understand the topic, to give the best of best to you all. So believe me, I'm also putting a lot of efforts to make this video lecture so that you can understand the topic in a very simplest manner. So revision itself is not enough. So you need to make up like you need to practice more number of questions. So that's why in the coming videos and all with the theory aspects, I'll be coming with some of the MCQs, okay, which have been asked previous year, so that you'll have an idea and you will also get to analyze like what topics that you need to concentrate and what topics you have to focus more. Believe me, together we can actually crack the NEET 2025 because this is not only your test. So if you achieve, that means obviously we will be winning it. Because you are our students, and if you achieve this exam right, so that means that is going to give a positive impact, a name frame to us also. That's why I'm saying you this is not the only exam for you guys, but also it is for us also. That's why I'm saying you we are there to support you, we are there to motivate you, we are there to solve your problems which you are finding difficulties with respect to the subjects. So make sure that you utilize these video lectures and please come up with any questions that you feel you are confused with the topics or you want something else to be explained. So please comment those things in the message box so that we will get to know whether you are understanding the lectures or not. And yes, once again, thank you so much for showing such a love for the previous videos. So yeah, coming to the topic. So today's topic, we will be discussing about the fertilization and implantation. So what do you mean by fertilization in general? So when I'm talking the fertilization in general, yeah, the fusion of two gametes, that is male gamete as well as the female gametes, and formation of the zygote. So this I can call in general as fertilization. Like, so about what are the male and female gametes? So male gamete in cells we have sperm. And what is the characteristics of sperm that I have explained in the previous video? What is the major characteristics of the sperm? It shows motile in nature, right? It is actually motile in nature. That means it shows momentum in order to reach to the where? In order to reach to the ovum. So that is the male gamete. So this is the sperm is produced by the spermatogenesis process. And coming to this, the ovum is being released by ovum is released by ovary, right? Is also the ovum which is being released by the ovary. So this is actually through the process called as oogenesis. So this is the female gamete. So now what happens is there going to be a fusion of this both male gametes and female gametes, which is going to form what? Zygote formation. Okay. So this is going to form what? zygote formation, and this leads to fertilization. But this is not very simple, right? Because anything is simple will never be a very huge beneficial. So again, this fertilization is somewhat complicated process, complicated mechanism. See, first what happen is this sperm is going to swing rapidly. Okay, swing rapidly, that means it is going to show a rapid momentum, it is going to swim rapidly. Okay, so where during the copulation, once the copulation has happened, once when the male and female they undergo the copulation, as a result what happened, the male is going to release the semen, right, which I have explained in the previous video. So once the semen, what it all consists? It consists the sperm, right? So semen is released by the penis, where it is released through the vagina. Okay, so the semen has been released into the vagina through the penis, and this process is called as. Can somebody say what is this process called as? Insemination, right? Insemination. So once this insemination happens, now the sperm, it has the motility nature. So it is going to, it is going to swim very fastly so that they can reach to the ovum. So at one insemination, one time when it releases the semen, there will be millions of sperm. And I have told you that 70% of them, where 60 to 70% of them will be in a proper structure, where 30 to 40% of them will be in improper, structure. That means some will not be having tail, some will not be having proper head and hull. So these, whatever the normal, okay, so whatever the normal sperms, they will immediately undergo, they'll start swimming rapidly to reach the ovum. So how they are going to reach the ovum? By passing through the cervix canal. Okay. So by passing through the cervix canal, so they enter into the uterus, and finally they are going to reach the ampullary region. Okay. Finally, they are going to reach to the ampullary region of the fallopian tube. So in fallopian tube, what you will be seeing, now the ovum is released by the ovary, is actually transferred to this ampulla region of the fallopian tube, and there the fertilization normally happens. Okay, so where fertilization normally takes place. If you know the image of this thing, okay, so this is the ampullary region. This is the cervix cavity. So from this is the cervix cavity, right? This thing. There is a cervix canal here. So once the sperm is reached, it will make sure it reaches from here, and finally it reaches to the ovum. So this is ovary. From the ovum, from the ovary, ovum is released. So you know, right? So this ovum, from where it normally infundibulum is there. So that is it helps in the attachment of the ovum. So you know this all things, right? So how the sperms will actually, they will travel through the cervical canal, and finally through this and reaches to this ampulla region, and finally it reaches to the infundibulum region. So where the fertilization normally happens. So you are clear with this fertilization part. So this is fertilization, and if the fertilization happens, that leads to what? Pregnancy. Okay, that leads, if fertilization has happened. So copulation, copulation where male and female, uh, the male, it is going to release that semen, where semen consists of sperm, and the female is going to release the ovum from the ovary. And once these two get fused together, it leads to what? Fertilization. And fertilization follows what? Pregnancy. Fertilization has happened, that means it is a sign of pregnancy. Okay, so now what kind of questions could be arised is either they are going to ask you the question based on the statement based, where they'll ask you regarding how the sperm is going to travel in order to reach to the ovum. Okay, so this questions might be asked. If it is somewhat twist and turn, questions could be asked on these part. Okay, if not, general questions will be asked. So make sure while you are preparing for this particular topic, you need to keep these all points in your mind. So you are clear with this copulation, fertilization, and pregnancy. So now, can you define a proper definition for the fertilization? The process of fusion of sperm with what? With the ovum, right? So the process of fusion of sperm with the ovum is actually called as what? It is actually called as fertilization. So you are clear with the fertilization now? Good. So once you are cleared with the fertilization, what happens? The sperm is going to, now we need to know how, so sperm has came. So the ovum is also ready. How the sperm is going to contact with the ovum? It is not going to happen easily. Before only I have said you that it is somewhat complicated process. So it is not going to happen easily. So how this is going to happen? So you can see the sperms here, and you have also seen the ovum. So there are some other parts which is covered surrounding to the ovum. One is we have zona pellucida region. You can see this outer part is actually called as zona pellucida. And there are some cells are being also surrounded. So we call them as cells of cornea radiata. So cells of corona radiata. Okay. So what are this function? I'll be explaining you right now. So now you can see that the sperms are in contact. Once they reach us, right, they come in contact with the zona pellucida. Okay, so the zona pellucida is a layer which is surrounded around the ovum. So once this happens, what it and once the sperm it reaches to the zona pellucida region, okay, it induces a change. That means this zona pellucida is going to act as a membrane which is going to block any of the sperm to get entered or any substance to get entered into the ovum. So it acts as a barrier basically. So now what happens in the structure of sperm that I have already explained you. So there is something, some enzymes, right? There are some enzymes which is actually present in the acrosomes, right? So these enzymes, okay, are going to, so that means these acrosome are going to secrete some enzymes, and these enzymes, they are going to help the enzymes will help the sperm to enter. Okay, so these enzymes are going to help the sperms to enter where? Into the cytoplasm, into the plasm of the ovum, through through what? Zona pellucida region as well as the plasma membrane. Okay. So make sure that you are clear with this thing. So obviously we have zona pellucida as well as the plasma membrane here. So once the sperm it reaches to this part, that is zona pellucida part, so immediately what happens? The sperm head is going to form certain enzymes. They are going to release certain enzymes. These enzymes are going to help the sperms to enter into the cytoplasm of the ovum through the zona pellucida region as well as the plasma membrane. Okay. So this initiates. So now what happens? Now we are clear with this thing that the and another very important thing is any this ovum or this zona pellucida region will only allow one sperm. Okay, will only allow one sperm to get enter. So there will be like in so again I'm basically saying you it is like a race. So if you still find yourself demotivated that I'm unable to compete with some of your friends and all, don't worry because you have started this journey even you were born before. Okay, that means there will be millions of, because I'm saying you right, there are millions of sperms, and out of those millions of sperm, only one sperm will fuse with this ovum and fertilization happen. So that means you have already won the race. That's what normally we say, right? Even movie mein batata hai, and even general. There are many, motivational choir. Some of the proverbs are also been given based on this part. So yes, so out of all these million sperms, only one sperm will be allowed to fertilize with the ovum, and when one sperm has been, it reaches to the zona pellucida first, immediately what happens? The zona pellucida after the enzymes have been secreted from the sperm through the acrosomes, right? So that sperm will enter. Whereas the zona pellucida immediately acts as a barrier to the other rest sperms, I mean, other remaining sperms, and at any cost, now it doesn't allow the sperm to get enter into this part. So this is clear to you. So while entering, only the nucleus part which is present in the sperm will be entered. Matlab, what happens? This head neck region, will be cut off. So your tail and neck region is not going to come. Clear? Only the head region will be allowed to. Okay, only head region will be allowed to get into the ovum. So this is another thing. And once this fertilization happen and once the sperm head has been it get fused, it comes into the ovum. So what happens? This induces the it is going to induce the completion of the it is going to induce the completion of what kind of division? Of meiotic division. Okay, meiotic division, and now it leads to the secondary oocyte. Secondary oocyte. Secondary oocyte. Now what happens? The secondary oocyte. It leads to the secondary oocyte. Now the secondary oocyte it undergoes the again meiotic division. So meiotic division will be unequal division, and that is going to really result in the what? It is going to result in the formation of the secondary polar body. Secondary polar body, which is actually haploid ovum in nature. Okay. Soon what happens? Soon what happens? I'm talking once it reaches to this part, okay? So that once it reaches to this part, so immediately in ovum, what happens? It undergoes the meiotic division to become the secondary oocyte. Then again, this undergoes the meiotic division second, where you can see the unequal division to form secondary polar body, which is an haploid ovum. Okay, and soon this haploid ovum will also be having a nucleus, right? Even this ovum will be having the nucleus, right? So now what happens? This nucleus of the sperm, which has been entered in the ovum, right? So that thing and the ovum both get fused together, okay? And this leads to the formation of zygote. Clear? So once the nucleus is entered into the ovum, these are the changes that going to happen. That means the ovum undergo the meiotic division, okay, to form the secondary oocyte, and again it going to form the meiotic second division to form the secondary polar body, which is haploid ovum in nature. So this haploid ovum is going to fuse with the nucleus of the male gamete. As a result, it leads to the fertilization and formation of zygote. So now can you say how many chromosomes will be present? Now can you say how many chromosomes will be present? Can you say how many chromosomes will be present in zygote? Can somebody say how many chromosomes will be present in the zygote? See, I'll give you a hint. Before what I told, so there will be how many chromosomes will be present here in the male gamete as well as female gamete. So during spermatogenesis, that is formation of sperm and ovum, how many chromosomes will be present? 23 chromosomes will be present. And how many chromosomes will be present in the ovum? 23 chromosomes will be present in the ovum also. So now what happened? These two gametes got fused. So as a result, how many chromosomes can I see in the zygote? 46 chromosomes can be absorbed in the zygote. So initially, how many chromosomes will be present? Means during the process of spermatogenesis, how many chromosomes will be present? 46 chromosomes will be present, right? So this 46 chromosome will undergo the meiotic division. As a result, it becomes a reduction division and it will leads to 23 chromosomes. Same thing in oogonia cells or oogonia. So what happens? 46 chromosomes will be there. So they are also undergoing the meiotic division and forming 23 chromosomes, right? Which is ovum. So now ovum consists of 23 chromosomes. The sperms and ovum, when they fuse together, it leads to the formation of total 46 chromosomes. So that means half of your chromosomes will be from your father and half of the chromosomes from will be from your mother. So this is clear to you? Cool. So once that is clear, we can move to the next. So therefore there is another theory where I can like say you. So one of the thing is either you will be resembled, that is sex of the baby will be resembled either based on your father or based on your mother. So fusion to what? How do you determine the sex of the baby? Like how is the sex, whether the baby will be boy or a girl, how this is going to determine? So you know this in very general that how this is going to happen. I think you have also studied in your class 10th. X as well as Y chromosomes are there, right? So when I'm talking with the human female, so what will be the chromosomes? 44 chromosomes plus another one thing will be like X and X. So whereas in male, you'll be having 44 chromosomes, which is general, and in the male, another two chromosomes will be X and Y chromosomes, right? So as a result, whether they are haploid or diploid now, so they are haploid in nature. So therefore, all the haploid gametes, that is ovum, which are being produced by the female. So female is going to produce the ovum, right? So which is haploid, and this is going to produce sperm, which is also haploid in nature. So what is diploid in nature? Initial, which will be consisting, right? So that will be diploid in nature. So that means out of 46 chromosome, only 23 chromosomes is going to come. Okay, only 23 chromosomes. That is, from here 22 chromosomes will be coming, and from here any one chromosome is going to come. So as a result, what happens? 23 chromosomes are going to come from the male and female parent. So that is haploid or diploid now. It is haploid in nature. Now what happens? So once this is once this haploid gametes are produced, as a result, what happens? So if the female will be having only X chromosome, X is, that means it will be having X chromosome, right? So it can either it is going to release X chromosome, again it will be releasing X chromosome itself. But in male, either it can give X chromosome or Y chromosome. So this is in general, from out of 42 chromosomes, 22 chromosomes will be given. Plus, any one chromosome has to be given from this two, right? So either it can give one X chromosome or it can give one Y chromosome. So whereas for female, you can see only X chromosome. So that means since both the chromosomes are XX itself, so it will be giving 22 chromosomes which is similar and one X chromosome. Again 22 chromosomes which is similar plus one X chromosome. So this is clear to you? I'll, yes. So now as a result, what happens? So from male, you will get either this or either this. That is, which is haploid in nature. Okay, so they are gametes basically. You'll get this gamete or you'll get this gametes. So this is from the male parent. So from the female, so two gametes, out of which one, right? You'll get only this itself. Okay. So as a result, you can consider only one. So now if you cross them, okay, if you cross them, sorry. So now, so what will you get now? So 22 plus x plus 22 plus x, right? Another fusion, you will get 22. This is male gamete, right? So 22 plus y and 22 plus x. So as a result, what you will get is 44 chromosomes plus XX, then 44 chromosomes plus another two chromosome will be X and Y. So now the zygote which is carrying the XX chromosomes, right? The zygote which is going to carry the XX chromosome, right? So that will lead to the development of the female baby. Okay. So the zygote which will be carrying XX chromosome will leads to the development of what? Female baby. Where the zygote which is going to carry the XY chromosome would be leads to the development of the male baby. So this is quite interesting. Now, if anywhere, if somebody says that, see, the baby which is female or male depends on mother, then what will be your answer? No, it is purely dependent on father because mother will be having two same chromosomes, that is XX chromosome. So where father will be having X and Y chromosome, right? So if the father gives you the X chromosome, obviously the baby will be the female, and if the father gives Y chromosome to the mother, then the baby will be the male. So who is the reason for the gender, whether it has to be a male baby or the female baby? Indirectly it is your father. So make sure wherever you hear this that okay, the baby which is born female or male, it's actually because of the mother. She has delivered the baby which is male or female. Make sure that you say them in a scientific way that it is because of father. Okay, because of the father's chromosome. So this how actually the male and female sex has been determined during the development is clear. So I hope this is very much clear to you. Done. Good. Okay. So yeah. So after the fertilization, Hua, so what next will happen? So I told you there will be fusion also happen, which is the ovum as well as the sperm nucleus का जो था fusion भी हो गया. So once the fusion is done, it will lead to what? Implantation तो होना है, right? So how this all things is going to happen? That I'll say you. See, now I told you that from the ovary which is present here, the ovum is released and sperm is going to travel from the cervix cavity and it is going to reach to the ovum and fertilization normally happens. And now the fertilization happened, like that means after the fertilization. So these are the initial stages. Okay. So these are the initial stages. So this thing is what happens. First point is it undergoes mitotic division. Okay. First point is it undergoes what kind of division? Mitotic division. Okay. Mitotic division, which leads to the formation of zygote. And once the zygote is formed, the zygote is going to move through the what this part is actually called as this part is actually called as is the sorry, yeah, so what this part is actually called as isthmus. Okay, so where the cleavage happens, cleavage in sense the cell starts dividing. Okay, so from here, what happens? The cleavage happens, and now you can actually see that there is a fusion happened, zygote got developed, and this region. Okay, so these region where I have called as isthmus region. So from that region, the cleavage start happening. So once a cleavage happens, right? This cleavage cells will start moving towards where? Uterus. So this is uterus, right? So uterus part, right? So cleavage cells will start moving towards the uterus and forms. So can you see? So fertilization happen. So this is the initial cell. So now what ovum is there? So ovum, sperms got fused. As a result, fertilization, the development of zygote happen, and as a result, they undergo the cleavage. So cleavage leads to two cleavage. Matlab one cell was there, it has undergo the cleavage where it is going to divide into two equal cells. So from two cleavage to four cleavage, from four to you will add eight cleavage, from 8 to 16 cleavage cells also you will be seeing. So these are the daughter cells, okay? And this cleavage part is actually called as blastomeres. So questions could arise from this part also. So where they will be giving you like most of them were statement based questions, or choose the incorrect or correct options from the incorrect or correct statements from the given options. These kinds of questions are also being asked in all the previous exams, right? So these kinds of questions could be asked, like they will be give you the proper position how this implantation happens. So there will be somewhere they are going to disarrange the process, and they'll ask you to choose the correct and a statement from the given option, or choose the incorrect statement from the given options. So like these questions they might ask. So I get to know what is blastomeres, right? Then once it reaches to the 8, the embryo with the 8 and 16th stage, that is called as the 8 and 16 blastomere, right? That means from 8 to you can actually see the 8 and 16 stage of this cell division. This blastomere is actually called as the morula. Okay, so as you can see here. So once the morula happen, these morula will again continuously it is going to divide itself, and later on it is going to transfer it into, okay, it is going to transform to the blastocyst. You can see here. So morula is again continuously it is dividing. So once the division has happened, and it is going to transfer into what? The blastocyst. So this blastocyst, okay. So blastocysts are arranged into the layer which is actually this blastocyst. Later on, it is going to become the trophoblast. Okay. So you can see here it is the trophoblast. So G is like blastocyst is there, and that gets transferred into, or the outer layer is actually called as the trophoblast. And the inner layer, that means this in the blastocyst, okay, the arrangement of the outer layer that you can see here is actually called as trophoblast. And the inner layer, right, and the inner group of the cells which are arranged, which are attached to this trophoblast is actually called as inner cell mass. You are clear with the trophoblast and inner cell mass, students? I hope you are getting to know the process, right? So first what happens? The ovum is released, then the fusion of the sperm and the ovum takes place. As a result, here the what happens? The cell undergo the meiotic division, जहाँ पर 2 cell stage होगा, 4 cell stage, 8, 16 cell stage, and it reaches to that 8 and 16 cell stage. We normally call them as the morula. So this again actively keep on dividing and get transformed into the blastocyst, right? So the outer layer of the blastocyst is actually called as the trophoblast, and the inner cell mass which has been attached to the trophoblast layer is actually called as inner cell mass. Okay. Then this trophoblast layer, the outer layer, okay, so that is going to get attached to the endometrium. So can I call this as endometrium now? This part is actually called as endometrium. Okay. So now this the outer part, that is what trophoblast, is going to attach to the endometrium. As a result, what happened? And the inner cell mass which were present, right? So they gets again differentiated. Again, they start getting differentiated, and finally it starts forming what? Embryo. Okay. It starts forming embryo. Which one? Inner cell mass is going to start forming the embryo. So once it gets attached, that means after the attachment, what happens? These the uterine cells, right? These uterine cells, they also start dividing rapidly, and it is going to cover this blastocyst. Okay. And later on, this uterus cell is going to cover what? Blastocyst, as a protection and for the rigid attachment of this blastocyst. Clear? As a result, what happens? The blastocyst becomes embedded. Embedded is completely attached. Embedded matlab completely attached in the, where it is present, in the endometrium region of what? You of the uterus. Clear to you? So now the blastocyst, okay, where this uterus cells, they are going to cover the entire blastocyst. Now the blastocyst is actually embedded into the endometrium region. Okay. Endometrium region of the uterus, and this is actually called as what? Implantation. Okay. And once the implantation is done, finally it leads to what? Pregnancy. Clear to you? So finally, once the implantation is done, right? After the implantation, finally it is going to leads to the pregnancy. So what happens after the pregnancy? So obviously, after the pregnancy, you are going to see the proper embryonic development. Okay. So after the pregnancy only, you will be able to see the proper embryonic development. Pregnancy and embryonic development. See, when I'm talking about pregnancy or embryonic development, in the last, like before, I have discussed about the implantation. I mean, fertilization happened, zygote was formed, and development was also seen. Like 2 stage, 4 stage, then 8 stage, 16 stage, 32 stage of blastomia. So these all blastomas were all seen. So then blastoma got formed into trophoblast, and I mean outer layer of that part is actually called as the trophoblast, and the inner cell which was being linked to the trophoblast are called as inner cell mass, and how they have been implanted, right? So implantation, and that leads to the pregnancy. Everything has been discussed. Everything was also being discussed. So now after implantation will leads to the pregnancy, have told. So pregnancy matlab what? Even the embryo which has started forming, so will also starts gradually develop, right? So after implantation, a finger-like projection appears in the trophoblast region. For example, if this is your blastomia, and you have the inner mass of cells here, right? So anyhow, so what is this region called as? Trophoblast. So after implantation, what happens? The trophoblast will start forming a finger-like projection. Okay. So where it is going to appear? It is going to appear on the trophoblast region, and that thing we normally call it as that finger-like projection on the trophoblast is actually called as chorionic villi. Clear? So, which normally is been surrounded. So, these are the finger-like projections that you can see anyhow. So, they are being surrounded by the what kind of tissues they are being, and these everything they have been surrounded by what kind of tissues? Uterine tissues. Okay. So, one thing what happens, this trophoblast is being surrounded by the chorionic villi as well as the uterine tissues. Okay. So then these after this thing, another one thing is also being surrounded around the trophoblast. What are the See, one is chorionic villi has been surrounded around the trophoblast. Then uterine tissues is also been surrounded around the trophoblast. Then the another one is the mother blood. That what I can call instead of mother, maternal. Maternal blood is also surrounded around this trophoblast. Okay. So after this thing, the this chorionic villi as well as the uterine tissues, they both becomes integrated with each other. Integrated matlab what happens is they two becomes mutually okay, they become one, integrated with each other. So as a result, what happens? And jointly, they start forming a structural functional unit between the development of this embryo, that is the fetus, as well as the maternal blood, right? So this maternal blood is now called as, this embryonic development. So this placenta. This chronic villi and the uterine tissues, they are going to become an integrated. So they become what? Integrated with each other to form a structural and functional structure, to form a proper structure and to perform a particular function in the embryonic development. And also this maternal blood. So together, we normally call it as the maternal blood called placenta. Okay. So this placenta is the one thing that the things that you can see, the placental villi, the placenta is the one thing. So that is going to help in the supply of oxygen, then the nutrients which is required for the development of the embryo, and also it is going to remove the carbon dioxide. Okay, remove the carbon dioxide as well as the waste. That means whatever the waste is been is been released from the embryo, so during the development, so this all thing is been removed by the placenta. Okay. And the placenta, it also acts as a connection. It also Placenta, what it does, it also acts as a connection of the connected, or so placenta also acts as a connection between the mother as well as the embryo. So how the placenta has been connected? So it is actually been connected. So placenta is connected to the embryo through what cord? Through the embryo, through the umbilical cord. So this is the placenta, okay, and this is the embryo you are seeing. So there is a connection between the placenta as well as the embryo. So this is by the connection is by the umbilical cord. Okay, so this umbilical cord actually acts as a connection between the placenta as well as the embryo. So where this transportation of the substances to the embryo and from the embryo takes place. Clear? The placenta also acts as an, it also acts as an endocrine tissue and produces several hormones. So now this placenta is acting as an endocrine tissue. That means it also produces several hormones, right? So what are the hormones? Like, do you have any idea? Like, what are the hormones that the placenta can produce? Anybody? So the first one is human chorionic gonadotropin hormone, that is SCG hormone. The another one is human placental lactogen. Okay, so this is the another hormone, that is human. See, this is very important. What are the hormones which are being produced by the placental? That is, since the placenta also act as an endocrine tissue, so what are the hormones which are being produced by this placenta, that is endocrine tissue is? So the first one is human chronic gonadotropic hormone. The second one is human placental lactogen hormone. And the third one is estrogens and the progestogens. Okay. So these are, and many other hormones are being, they are being, what I can say, they have been secreted from this endocrine tissue. So this is clear. So placenta acts as an endocrine tissue. This is another very important point while you are studying, because the questions might ask like twist and turn. So because what happens here, it's not, placenta is not an hormone basically, but it acts as an endocrine tissue. So this endocrine tissue, in order, it is going to release, it helps in the releasing of some of these hormones, okay, which helps in the phases of the pregnancy. So what happens? So in the late phase of the pregnancy, like after a pregnancy, in the late phase, what happens? Hormones like hormones like relaxin. See this thing. So these whatever the hormones that have said, that is uh, HCG hormones, then HPL hormones, then estrogen and progesterone hormones, they will be released during the pregnancy itself. During the pregnancy, like once the pregnancy has happened, during the development, it is going to release. Relaxin is a hormone which is going to released at the late phase of pregnancy. Okay. So when it is going to release? Late phase of pregnancy. Okay. And relaxin is one hormones which is been uh yeah, it has been released. Okay. So this is also being secreted by the ovary. The relaxin is also been secreted by the ovary. So another thing is, we need to remember this one particular thing, that is HCG hormone, HPL hormone, then the relaxin hormone. Okay. These SCG, HPL, and the relaxin hormone. These three hormones, they are being produced in the woman, okay, only during the pregnancy. So these three are the hormones which are being produced in the woman only during the pregnancy. Whereas this thing, estrogen and progesterone, is like something, there are other levels of hormones. There will be an hormones imbalancement will also happen. Okay. So in addition to this, as I told, that estrogen, then progesterone, okay, progesterogens, then yeah, cortisol hormones, then we have thyroxine hormones, and still many hormones have been released. So these hormones, they are being increased. There will be fluctuation also will be seen, and these are the hormones which will be increased in the blood, okay, of the mother. So that you say that these are the hormones and these hormones level will be increased during the pregnancy in the mother. So normally hormones will be there in the mother, but during the pregnancy, this hormones peak will be high in the blood. Okay, this is another thing. So why this is very important? Because the increased production of these hormones is essential for the essential of the supporting of the fetal growth. Okay, so supporting of the fetal growth and also the metabolic changes and also helps in the metabolic changes, okay, in the mother, as well as it is going to maintain the entire pregnancy. So that's why these hormones are very important. That increased amount of hormones during the pregnancy in the maternal blood is very important. Whereas HCG, HPL, as well as relaxin hormone is only produced during the pregnancy. Okay. So do remember this point, very important. Whereas these hormones, right, they are already present, but their level will be increased. Getting? So their level will be increased during the pregnancy in the maternal blood. So why this level increasing is very important? Because it gives the proper supporting for the fetal or embryonic development and fetal development, and also helps in the metabolic changes during the pregnancy. This is clear. So immediately after the implantation, so now the inner cell mass, that is, if this is so immediately after implantation, the inner cell mass that I'm saying, right, they that is the embryo, it starts to differentiate. Okay, once the implantation is over, so it starts to differentiate into an outer layer called as ectoderm and the inner layer called as endoderm. Okay, so they starts to differentiate as outer layer called ectoderm and inner layer called endoderm, the embryo. So, and there will be a mesoderm will also be present. Okay, mesoderm will also be present. And this mesoderm, right, you will actually see them in the middle of the ectoderm and endoderm. Getting? So you will be seeing this mesoderm in the middle of the ectoderm and endoderm. So these three layers, okay, these three layers give rise to, these three layers give rise to tissues, then organs in the adult. Okay, so these are the three layers which give rise to tissues, then organs in the adult. This is also very important. So what are the three layers after implantation? What happens? Immediately the inner cell mass it's going to differentiate to form the ectoderm, then endoderm, and the middle mesoderm. So once that is outer layer is actually called as the ectoderm, and the inner layer is actually called as the endoderm, and the middle layer is actually called as mesoderm. These three layers together it forms tissues, organs in the adult. Okay, and this is very important. So this is very important that inner cell mass, right? That is the starting mass. We normally call them as stem cells, because from this inner cell mass only what is happening, other tissues and organs or other cells are being forming or they are developing. From where? From this cells. So now I need to call them as stem cells or mother stem cells. Okay, from these cells only what happening, the tissues and organs are rising. So this is one point. The next thing is, what are the major futures or features that you are going to see during the development of the pregnancy? Like various months of pregnancy is that, right? So various months of pregnancy. So what all the things you will be seeing? So we say it as pregnancy lasts for 9 months. Okay. So we normally say that pregnancy lasts for 9 months. So 9 months pregnancy means what all the futures that you are going to see during this 9 month. So whereas in other animals like cat, dog, elephant, it gets varies. Whereas in human beings, it is 9 months of pregnancy. Okay. So on the very first thing, that is in human beings, very first thing after 1 month, after the 1 month of pregnancy, so what you will see is embryo's heart gets developed. So in the first month of pregnancy, what you are going to see? You are going to see heart development in the embryo. So this is initially in the first month of the pregnancy. And how you are going to recognize? When a doctor is going to, hear the heartbeat range from the stethoscope, one will be able to sense that, okay, 1 month is completed. Normal. The first sign of this thing is through, the heartbeat. So heart is developed, and that is the first. And when it has been developed, it is being developed in the first month of the pregnancy. And the first sign of the growing of the, that is the baby, that is the fetus, is by noticing that, by listening the heartbeat. Okay, by listening the heartbeat very carefully through the stethoscope. So this is the very first point. And next, what happens by the end of the second month of the pregnancy? By the end of the second month of pregnancy, what you're going to see is the fetus is going to develop the limbs, that is, limbs and digits, fingers, legs, and all. So that thing you are going to observe in the second month of the pregnancy. And by the end of the 12th week, okay, end of the 12th week, so which we normally call it as first trimester. So you need to be careful. You need to understand this terminologies. That is, when the first trimester is called end of the 12th week, it is normally call it as, we normally call it as first trimester. So most of the major organs will be developed. That is, major organ systems are formed. For example, limbs and external example, well developed limbs you will see. Then even external genitalial organs, okay, so are also well developed. This is another point. Then what you will see is the very first momentum of the baby, that is within the womb. Very first momentum of the baby you will observe, and appearance of the hair around the body, appearance of the hair on the head, basically on the head. The hair appearance will also be observed when in the fifth month. Okay, in the fifth month. Then by the end of about 24th week, 24th week, what you will see, and this is called as second trimester. Okay, 24th week is actually called as second trimester. What you will see, the body covered with fine hairs. Okay, then you will see eyelids are also been observed. Okay, and by the end of the ninth month, and the end of the ninth month, the fetal will fully be developed and ready to delivery. So now can you list with me like what are the changes that you will be observed during this ninth month? Basically, in human beings, the pregnancy lasts for 9 months. So during the first month or after 1 month of the pregnancy, what happened? You'll be able to observe the heartbeat. How? By carefully listening to the heartbeat through the stethoscope, one will be able to observe that okay, the embryo has started developing, the fetal has started developing. At the end of the second month, you will be observing the limbs and digits. At the end of the 12th week, that is actually called as first trimester, right? So you will be seeing the limbs, external genitalial organs will also be observed. In the fifth month, what you will be seeing, the hairs are grown in the like on the head. So that is what you will be seeing. Then at the end of the 24th week, that is on the second trimester. So what you will be observing, you will be observing that the body is covered by the hair. Then you will also see the eyelids development will also be observed. Then at the last month, that is at the ninth month or the end of the ninth month, what you will be able to see is now the baby, that is the fetal, is fully developed and it is ready to get delivered. So these are the symptoms. These are the things that you will be observed during the ninth month, 9 months. Okay, at initial month of the pregnancy. So after the pregnancy, okay. So now I told at the end of the 9 month, basically sometimes at a very rare condition 10 months, but in a very proper condition 9 months is the last month. Okay. So 9 month after what happens once the baby is ready to get delivered. So that is called as and the baby has been delivered. Okay, so that is actually called as gestation period. So where now the baby is ready to get delivered and the mother starts getting pain. So I'll talk about this thing. So the next concept is, so now can you guess me like what is the last concept of this chapter? Parturition and lactation. Very good. Yes, very good. So parturition as well as the lactation. So as I told you that the average duration of the pregnancy is about 9 months. So this thing we normally call it as gestation period, right? So during this period, what happens? The uterus starts getting contracted vigorously. So that means the uterus part will start getting contracted. Okay. So as a result, what happens? And at the end of the pregnancy, what happens? The baby will be delivered by this uterus. Just a minute. Yeah. See, this if this is the uterus, so what happens? These parts, it starts getting contracted. As a result, the baby will be able to get delivered from this particular part. Clear? So, after this, what happened? The process of the delivery of the baby, okay? The process of the delivery of the baby or the delivery of the fetus is actually called as parturition. So you are clear with the definition of parturition, the process of delivery of the fetus or the childbirth is actually called as parturition. And parturition is not a simple process, students. Okay. Again, it is a very complex process. So, or a complex mechanism where there includes an induce of the hormones that is neuroendocrine mechanism. So, during parturition, what actually happens? So, the parturition is induced by a complex of, so what is it? Neuroendocrine neuroendocrine mechanism. Okay, so neuroendocrine mechanism. So what is this neuroendocrine mechanism? So you know what is neuro, right? So neuro means neurons, your brain, your functions, neurons. And endocrine is nothing but endocrine system. So the neurons as well as endocrine system, they coordinate together to form a particular function. And this mechanism is called as neuroendocrine mechanism. And this normally happens, that means even normally the endocrine system has been coordinated with our neurons itself, but specifically during the pregnancy, what happens during the parturition, there you will be seeing that the parturition is actually happening because of the coordination that you are seeing, and that has been occurred by neuroendocrine mechanism. Okay, so parturition is actually induced by neuroendocrine mechanism is clear. So what are the sign? So there will be specific pains get started happening, right? The sign for the parturition, the sign for the parturition originate from the fully developed fetus. Originates from fully developed fetus. So as a result, what happens? So there will be this, that is the placenta. So this placenta which induces a mild contraction. Okay, mild, what contraction? As I have shown in the figure, that is uterine contraction. As a result, that parturition, sorry, that placenta which is going to induce this mild contraction. Okay, so in the uterine, because of the fully developed fetus is actually called as fetal ejection reflex. So this is very important. What is fetal ejection reflex? The sign for the parturition originated from fully developed fetus. Okay, fully developed fetus, and the placenta which induces this mild uterine contraction is actually called as fetal ejection reflex. Okay, so during this process happens, so there are the oxytocin has been released, and this acts on the uterine muscles, and which helps in the strong contraction. Okay, strong uterine contraction without giving more pain, without any damaging of the cells or without any damaging of the muscles. So because you have seen the size now, so it need to get contrast, right? So that means it has to get contrasted. So for that, oxytocin acts where it is going to give a mechanical support for the muscles to contrast very easily. This is clear. The simultaneously what happens, there will be a reflex between the uterine contraction as well as oxytocin secretion will also be in the peak during this contraction, and this leads to the continuous. Okay, this will be continuous, and this leads to the expel, that is come out of the baby. Okay, out from the uterine. So this will leads to the come out of the, so yeah, so now the baby is been developed, and this is leads to the come out of the expel of the baby, you are getting. So from the birth canal, so from the birth canal, and this is actually called as parturition. And soon after the baby came out from the birth canal, that is from the mother womb, as a result, what happens? As a result, what happens? So now the baby will automatically, that means the baby will fully come out from the mother womb. Okay, this is clear to you. So then what happens? They are going to cut the placenta, that is the connection between umbilical cord. We normally call it as the umbilical cord. So which acts as a connection between the placenta as well as the mother, right? That is the placenta as well as the embryo. So that umbilical cord will be cut. The doctor is going to cut this umbilical cord in such a way that both are not affected by that. So now the baby is been delivered. Clear. So now the baby is been delivered. So what next? See, in mammals, why do we call ourselves as the mammals? Because if you see mammals, especially the female mammals, during the pregnancy, they start producing the milk in their breast region. In every mammals, if they are pregnant during the pregnancy, what happens? They start producing milk. Towards the end of the pregnancy, what happens? The milk is been produced, and this process is actually called as lactation. So this lactation is going to help the mother to feed to the newborn. So that is her babies. Okay. So newborn baby will be feeded by this lactation milk. So this lactation milk will be rich in, okay. So lactation is actually called as the mother, the milk which is being produced by the initial few days, okay, by the mother. That lactation milk is actually called as colostrum, okay. So this contains several antibodies. So this contains several antibodies so that will help the babies to fight against the pathogens or disease causing organisms in future. This is one point. And some of the necessary enzymes will also be present, okay, which is going to help the newborn baby. So breastfeeding during the initial period of the baby, that is infant growth, during the infant growth at the initial feeding, breastfeeding is actually recommended by the doctors and everyone. So to bring up a good health in the baby. So that's why normally they say that. So at the initial days of the baby, breastfeeding is must and should. Okay, because that is going to provide the natural antibodies to the baby, so that in future what happens, the baby will be getting immunized against many pathogens and many disease causing organisms, and also it is going to acquire some of the antibodies by the mother itself. So that is why the breastfeeding, that is the lactation milk, is very important to all the animals, not only human beings, but to every animals like mammals. Breastfeeding, that to lactation milk, is very important. So this is all about what? Human reproduction. So in the human reproduction, initially, can you summarize like what all the things we have discussed? In the first video, I have discussed about in the first video, I have discussed about male and female reproductive system. I have explained in detail about their structures, their functions, how this all things happens. And the second video lecture, I have also discovered the gametogenesis as well as menstrual cycle. In gametogenesis, I have talked about how the sperms are produced by the process called spermatogenesis, hormones which are regulating the spermatogenesis, oogenesis, then hormones which are regulating the process of oogenesis, ovum is produced from the oogenesis, then menstrual cycle, phases of menstrual cycle, hormones which regulates the menstrual cycle. And why menstrual cycle is very important, and what happens if fertilization doesn't happen, then what happens, and if fertilization happens, what is going to happen in the menstrual cycle. These are all things, or these all concepts I have discussed. And in today's video, I have discussed regarding the fertilization and implantation. What are the ways the fertilization happens? How the sperm is going to come nearer, and how it is going to fuse with the ovum. Then after the fertilization, how the zygote form and where it is going to implant. Then from there, how the embryonic development happens, right? And what are the stages of embryonic development? How many months will take to develop into a complete fetus? And after the completion of 9 months, that is the complete baby development, how it is going to come out from the mother womb. Everything has been explained. And at the end, I have also explained you about the lactation and lactation period. Right. So make sure in the NEET exams, every time, two questions have been asked from this particular chapter, that is male and, sorry, five questions has been asked from this particular chapter, where two questions have been asked from male and female reproductive system. Then gametogenesis and menstrual cycle, one question has been asked from any of this topic. Then we have fertilization and implantation, right? So one question has been asked every year. And this thing, that is pregnancy and embryonic development, one question has been asked. Then from parturition and lactation, one question has been asked from these topics. So like if you see 2022, four question has been asked from this particular chapter. So 2023 and 2024, five questions have been asked from this particular chapter. So that's why I'm saying you make sure one thing you need to know is how many questions have been asked from this particular chapter. Based on that, you need to give time to each and every topic. So questions were basically on the direct questions were asked from the line to line, statement based questions, or choose the appropriate answers from the given options. So these kinds of questions were asked. Diagram figure based questions were not asked till like from the past 3 years, but they may ask in coming 2025. We don't know because abhi NTA they are planning to change many set of rules like its exam pattern and all because of the issues that has happened recently. So that's why it is better that we prepare for everything. This is one point. And if you still feel any confusions where I need to, where will I find all those questions, previous year questions, and how will I able to answer them and all? So no worries because for from the Memo Neet we have the NTA PYQ book. So which I've been mentioning it in every video lectures because it is really very helpful to you guys. Believe me, because we have segregated all the previous year questions based on the chapter wise, based on the topic wise. We have mentioned from which year the question has been asked and what kind of question it has been asked. And even a crisp explanation and the detailed explanation is also given. I even recommend you that if you read the detailed explanation, right, you can also prepare simultaneously for your theory also. In that way, the NTA PYQ book has been framed. Then even we have explained from which text, from which chapter, from which class, from which chapter, and at which topic they have taken this question, and where you will find in the textbook, like in which page number you will find in the textbook. So that is also given in this NTA PYQ book. So make sure that you utilize all these elements that we are providing you, and let me know if you still need something that I need to explain you guys, or you find something very difficulty to memorize or to remember, or you want me to repeat some topics. Please don't hesitate. Okay, drop your message in the comment section so that we will let to know like what you are going through, how is your preparation is going on for the NEET 2025. And Memo NEET is with you all because we are there 24 into 7 to support you, to guide you, to help you getting improved. And together, yes, we will help you to crack your NEET 2025. No doubt in it.